War, an intense armed conflict between states, governments, societies, or paramilitary groups such as mercenaries, insurgents, and militants. It is generally characterized by extreme violence, aggression, destruction, and mortality. It occurred not as an often voluntary instrument of state policy, but as a result of a clash of social interests, social forces. War as an enduring nation that demonstrates four continuities: a political dimension, a human dimension, the existence of uncertainty. War arises due to changing relations of numerous variables, which includes economical gain, territorial gain, religious ideas, civil war, revolution, and preemptive war. Historically, the pursuit of territory and resources has been one of the most prominent secondary reasons for conflicts, as seen in World War and Nigerian Civil War.
There are a number of causes in various parts of the world. One can only generalize, but there are some specific situations. In most cases, you discover that it's often a clash of political interest. People basically want to control their environment. And if they think that their interest, their livelihood, their future, their prosperity is being interfered with, or is likely to be changed drastically by the intervention of another community or another nation or whatever, then they react. So conflicts arise because people feel threatened. Secondly, matters of ambition. And you find that most wars are really created by leaders who may be ambitious for something. They don't even care what the ordinary people feel. So political ambition has been one of the things that has led to a lot of crises in the world. And then conflict of ideas. There are ideologies of how to organize society, economy, and so on. And because there are confrontations, the world shapes into various, areas. And so, although that we hope that is dying down now, but ideas are very, very powerful. And you find that this conflict of ideas can lead to serious conflicts. But the most serious one that really has led to even 2 world wars is how to defend human rights. The right of people to life, to liberty, to freedom, and to live their lives in happiness. And you know that both the First World War and the Second World War was really that people arose, I don't want to go and start mentioning specific nations, who leaders thought they should now dominate the rest of the world in their own interest. And the others said, no, you can't do that. The Second World War really was a fight of the rest of the world against a particular perception of how they want to rule the world. And so that was a very, very serious thing that led to a world war. So ideas are very, very powerful. That is why on World Peace Day, we should generate peaceful ideas, good ideas, great ideas. And this is why the Christian faith, as far as I'm concerned, the Christian faith really has a lot to offer, because we have beautiful thoughts in our minds. Since when we are Christians, we are being controlled by the Holy Spirit. And the fruit of the Spirit is love, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. These are very powerful thoughts. But there are certain other organizational things that, their own is just deal with the other people, kill them. They don't even respect life. And finally, the most deadly, for now, this is why I'm bringing it to the current, is there are changing views now, which is very pathetic, about the essence of life. There are those of us who are pro-life. Life is sacred. You can't just tamper with whether it's an embryo or a born baby or so on. You can't. But there are some people who don't care about that at all. Their own is just to enjoy themselves. So these confrontations are emanating and coming up in various parts of the nations. Like in the US, they are in serious trouble now. In Europe, in China. So there are ideas of how people view life. And believe you me, the real tensions in many nations now is in this kind of thing. There are those who are pro-life and those who don't care. They don't want to deal with life as long as they are. Now, coming back home, unfortunately, in this our own country, some of the causes of conflicts, which if we don't manage may lead to bigger things, is really not respecting the interests of others.
Civil war can have a devastating impact on the economic development of countries. Countries experiencing civil war will see a collapse in tourism, foreign investment, and domestic investment. It can also lead to shorter life expectancy and lost GDP. There is no doubt that wars affect women and children differently. Whenever there has been conflict, women and children have been known to suffer during and after war. As was seen in the terrible abuses against women and children, from the 1.1 million children killed during the Holocaust to the many women, children raped, killed during the Rwanda genocide. Women and children are often the most vulnerable and prone to being hit by the others. Women who survive these atrocities often have to live with the vivid and terrifying images of rape, war, and death for the rest of their lives. Women also suffer from sexually transmitted diseases.
The first lesson is that we shouldn't have gone to war at all. All right? We shouldn't have gone to war at all. But having done that, and after the war, we should have really taken reintegration, accepting people to come back. We should really have received people genuinely, peacefully, and so on, so that they feel they're at peace and equal with other Nigerians, and there is no question mark of any something. The first people that suffer most from them are women and children. And then, of course, the men that will go to suffer get killed. But so you find that in most wars, it's the weak, the children, the women, and so on, they suffer severely. And then populations are moved from one section to another because they are powerless. Very pathetic. Therefore, we shouldn't have war. In 2014, the president of Nigeria then, very wisely, gathered Nigerians to say, look, instead of this war, let us come and discuss it, because that is the best way. Two people cannot live together unless they agree. It's a very simple spiritual fact. So we gathered, and believe me, the composition was wonderful from every part of Nigeria. I was fortunate to be a member, a delegate to that conference. We reached conclusions on so many thorny issues. Good recommendations, wonderful recommendations that if we implemented, Nigeria would be at peace. And there were three key things that were worrying people and wanted to resolve it. When you have a plurality of people like we have in Nigeria, so many tribes, so many cultures, so many religions and so on, only federalism can work. Not unity, because when you have various people, only a federal structure can help. But in that federal structure, you have to decide three things. Which is the best structure in terms of the federal center and the federating units? You have to agree. Now the military imposed a lot on us, we the people. This is how we want it. Number two, who does what? Or what we call devolution of powers. Right now the powers are so accumulated in the center, and they can't do it. The roads, some of the roads to my place that are not passable now, they say they are federal roads. For goodness sake, if you can't do it, leave it. The federal is taking so much under the military and they can't do it. So under devolution, you push it to the levels and empower them to do it. Who doesn't want a good thing? If you have the power, you develop the roads and things in your area and you give them the resources. Then the third thing is really who gets what. That is fiscal federalism. This money, who gets what? So many people are cornering it now. Leading to tension. There should be a way in which we all agree. that the federating unit should keep a certain percentage, look after the interests of their people, education, agriculture, their health, and so on. They want to look security. And then you now give a percentage to the center to do foreign affairs, defense, and so on. That's how it is done everywhere in the world where you have a federal structure. So that you govern yourselves at the local level and do good things. And in those days when we had the federal system, that kind of federal structure, the regions were doing great things. This issue of living together, we have to agree. This is what we want. This is who does what. This is who gets what. So there'll be no fight. That is the mystery of it. That if you refuse to talk and you go to war, then you have to come back to talk. Because war cannot bring about peace. Peace has to be discussed, even in the home. And this is why when we teach on marriage and so on, conversation, talking to each other. Life flows into one another. Then there will be peace. Like they are discovering now, say, for example, in Afghanistan, after so many years of killing each other, they now have to come to a round table and talk and decide on ways of peace, where they should have started in the first place. It's always like that. Even after the First or Second World War, the United Nations came because of the let us avoid future war by coming together. You see, spiritually, as the Bible says, words are powerful. And in this tongue in the words is life and death. And life is spiritual. You said a word now that can generate a lot of, before you know it, there is confrontation. Somebody else comes in with, will come and say a few words. He says, calm down. Words are powerful. And I know this because I've been privileged to serve as the nation's Minister of Information a number of times. And believe you me, any time that I have to now talk to the public, I have to pray and think, choose my words carefully. A wrong word can set all sorts of things into trouble. So therefore, as the word says, you have to now, as it were, season your speech with what? Salt. So that there is joy and peace out there. But there are some people, some leaders don't know how to talk peace. I think the UN strategy is correct. Let us generate ideas. Let us generate conversation. Let us generate things that will lead to peace so that we don't have to go to the area of war.
After the World War II, an organization called the United Nations was established. The UN works to prevent conflict, helping parties in conflict to make peace, and creating the conditions to allow peace to hold and flourish. In 1981, the United Nations General Assembly in a resolution established the International Day of Peace. By creating the International Day of Peace, the UN devoted itself to worldwide peace and encouraged people to work in cooperation for this goal. Since its inception, Peace Day has marked personal and plenary progress towards peace. It has grown to include millions of people worldwide, and many events are organized each year to commemorate and celebrate this day. The first Peace Day was celebrated in 1982 and was held on the third Thursday of September each year until 2002, when September 21 became the permanent date for the International Day of Peace. The Assembly decided in 2001 that the International Day of Peace should be annually observed on 21st September, starting from 2002. By setting a feast date for the International Day of Peace, the Assembly declared that the day should be observed as a day of global ceasefire and non-violence.
It was established in 1981. Coincidentally, it was when the UN General Assembly was opened. Then when it was established, it was celebrated for the first time in 1982. I don't know if you saw anything in that celebration. Then in 2002, it was made permanent in September 21st. And since then it has been that it's always celebrated at every 21st of September. But then that is peace.
In 1981, the United Nations General Assembly raised a resolution on observing International Day of Peace, which we now call the World Peace Day, for 21st of September of each year. The idea really is to do quite a number of things. First of all, they want us to share thoughts and ideas on how to unite the world, how people should cooperate to ensure peace, security, and safety. Because in every nation, the primary purpose of any government is the security and welfare of the people. Because if the life, what are you defending? So the most important thing is to ensure that people can live their lives in peace and in hope. Secondly, they want us to share thoughts in such a way that wherever there is violence in any part of the world, they should observe 24 hours of non-violence and ceasefire. And you know, that can lead to some discussion that can lead to peace. And then they also are very, very keen to ensure that we strengthen the processes of building peace. You know, peace has to be built in terms of compassion and kindness and goodness and being your neighbor's keeper. So there must be processes. And the reason why they're emphasizing on thoughts is that every human action starts with a thought. And if people are violent in their thoughts, then the actions will be violent. If they are not peaceful to their neighbors, the action will be violent. Therefore, they want us to promote peaceful thoughts, peaceful ideas, you know, share ideas on how we should really, as it were, live together in peace and solidarity. That is the idea of the World Peace Day. This year, 2020, the UN decided that the theme for this year will be shaping peace together.
Peace is an idea and war is a tragedy. War may even be considered inexcusable under any circumstances. Peace is devoted and strengthening the ideas of peace, both within and among all nations and peoples.
That day, especially for Nigeria, is day of assessment. It's a day of assessment, not celebration. It's a day of assessment to see how successful and unsuccessful peace has moved in Nigeria. It is our concern for Nigeria. It's a world peace, but it's our concern for us to look into Nigeria. Do we have peace in Nigeria? Cameroon may have peace and celebrate. Malawi may have peace and celebrate. But do you have peace in Nigeria? And if you don't have, what are you celebrating? You should assess. You should assess why, whether if you assess and if it is successful, you celebrate. But if you assess and it's not successful, you have to find out why it's not successful. Why it's not successful. And to my personal opinion, I don't think if we assess on the 21st, we will see successful peace in our nation. So that is where we'll have trouble. That is why I mentioned we cannot avoid peace education. I've written a lot on that. But the problem I always have is projecting it. In this country, the first problem we have is implementing the right thing. Implementing the right thing. There's this lackadaisical attitude where people are not interested in what is good in this country. People are not interested in what is good at all. I'm telling you from facts. I'm telling you from facts because I have taught in National War College, graduated military officers, taught in Jaji, in NIPS, and after talking, and they will congratulate you, they will do everything, they will ask you, where did you get all these facts? But implement it, no. And that is what we have in this country. We have that frustration where You have ideas, noble ideas that will change things, and then people will not take it.
There can never be peace without justice. Because what leads to war is injustice. So I want to assure you that once you want peace, ensure justice. That's it. But some people don't want to have justice and fairness and so on, and they want peace at their own just to favor them. Let me come to this very, very important issue you raised. It's extremely unfortunate that the struggles that were made a few years back during governorship of, let's say, the two very distinguished gentlemen who were governors then, who actually, as it were, looked at what should be the main solutions to this. And they went into it, listened to the people, and the people came up with what really should be done. And that government did it, and there was a lot of, for almost nearly 2 decades. Seriously. Because you see, there are 2 different parts of Kaduna State. People have to realize that. There is the part that is largely Christian, made up of small groups, communities, but they are people, and they need to be secure in their areas. And then, of course, you have the other side that historically have been the dominating part. Now, if you now want peace at this particular, you listen to the leaders of these areas where there has been tension. Unfortunately, you cannot choose leaders for people. They know whom to trust. And therefore, in southern Kaduna, Sokapo is their own organization. They are the ones who put up the leadership. If you want to hear them correctly, listen to Sokapo. But if you say, no, I don't want to listen to Sokapo, I'll go and choose people that will represent you. Say, we don't trust those people. It's a question of trust. And I think if I'm to advise the governor in Kaduna, why ignore Sokapo? They are the leaders of the people. If you want peace, then you have to respect the people's leaders and listen to them. Number 2, the Christian Association of Nigeria is the spiritual organization that the people respect. Again, in Kaduna, it would appear that the governor doesn't want to take Sokapo and Khan seriously. And so the people say, if you are not taking our genuine leader that we love and listen to, then you have another agenda. That's it. So my own advice to me, for goodness sake, if you want peace, talk to the leaders, accredited leaders, everywhere in the world. You have people who are accredited leaders of the people. People trust them. People believe in them. People are at peace with them because they are sincere, they have integrity, they now fight for the interests of the common people. So that is what is happening in Kaduna. So Sokapo is correct. If they say that they were not involved, why shouldn't they be involved? Everybody have the right to select. That's the essence of democracy. But I also appeal to Sokapo, if I have my way, to say, look, because we want peace, engage with the governor so that at least there will be understanding. And the governor should not avoid them simply because they are difficult. So we engage, and then there will be peace. You'll be amazed. The people in Sokapo, they are some of the most peace-loving people that I've known. And many of them are educated, refined, cultured, civilized, good people. But they will not sacrifice the interests of their people. Well, that's how people want to, one of the things that good leaders don't do, they don't ever betray the interests of their people. And it would appear the governor wants them to betray they will never do that. And he should even encourage them to do that, because good leaders should not betray the trust of the people. They should always protect them and have integrity and be able to say, look, those are good leaders. That's what it should be. So I appeal to the governor, take Sokapo seriously. Let them come to the table. You talk and you have peace.
Peace is the ability to resolve conflict without violence and working towards to improve the quality of lives. In a social sense, peace is commonly used to mean a lack of conflict and freedom from fear of violence between individuals or groups.
Peace may not necessarily be the absence of war, because we don't pray to be fighting war at all the time. Peace is an environment. When there's peace, there's an environment of calm, there's love, there's friendliness, there's no quarrel among anybody. So, in any environment, in any country, if there is no peace, there cannot be any progress. So, in the church, Jesus himself says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God." So, in the family, for women who are mothers, sisters in the home, wives, they should ensure that there is peace, there is harmony, there is love in the home between husband and wife, between the parents and the children, among the children, and then from the home, it goes out to the church. As Christians, you go to the church, ensure that you are part of the people in the church who show love, who ensure that there's no fighting among the members, among the children. Because when you do that, it also extends to the community. The community will be at peace. People will love one another. People will learn to love one another and to help one another. And then that will also extend to the nation. You are not looking at anybody and say, "Oh, this person is not from my place, it's not from my home, it's not, we are not speaking the same language, we are not, we don't belong to the same religion, and therefore I cannot interact with that person, I cannot love that person, there cannot be harmony between us." When you learn to spread that peace, then the country will progress. The communities will progress, the church will progress and be united. The family also will stand as one unit when the parents are at peace and the children are at peace.
Peace is the ability or the situation, the grounds where people live together in unity and in absolute tranquility. Peace is where people live together without quarrel, without fighting. There would be disagreement, but people understand themselves even when they disagree. It is not the absence of war, as most people would want it to be. Sometimes in the midst of war, peace is experienced. We could get to a point where there is crisis, there is violence, there is all of those things, and then there is that peace that comes. And that is the kind of peace that Jesus Christ brought. We are in the world, but not of the world. The world will hate us, but we carry in us peace that comes from above. And so Jesus Christ said, his peace is not like the world offers, but his peace is a special one, the peace that is beyond human understanding. So as we celebrate International Day of Peace, that's the first peace we will be looking at, that the peace that Jesus Christ is in us and we're in Jesus. Then we can now go ahead now to embrace the peace of living together with others in perfect unity, in understanding, in agreement, and in other areas of life.
Scholars have always limited themselves to the definition of peace as absence of war and violence, calmness, calmness, calmness. When environment is calm, when an individual is calm, when groups are calm, it's seen as peace. There's peace. But there's something more than that in the definition of peace. From research, I found out that there's something more than that in the definition of peace. You see, there's what we call operational definition of a term. And if you don't understand the operational definition, you cannot operate that word. You may be using the word anger every day, but you don't know the meaning of anger. And that is what we should look into peace. Peace is not just the absence of war, calmness of environment, but peace, to me, as I've researched, is the removal of hatred, frustration, anger from human mind. The removal of hatred, frustration, anger, violence from human mind. Just follow hatred, frustration, anger, violence. From hatred, it ends with violence. And then the replacement of it with love, happiness, fulfillment, and joy. That is peace. So our duty now is to replace these terms, these ingredients of peace, wrong ingredients of peace, with happiness, joy, love. And that is it. The Anglican Church has an exit prayer, and I love that. Go ye into the world, pay no man evil for evil. That is forgiveness. Overcome hatred with love. That is peace. In human body, you have the mind and the heart. And then the mind is the seat of self-control, the mind. We must take care of this. Why I'm saying this is that for you to solve a problem, you must know where the problem lies. That is why even in the university, when we are supervising a project, we ask students to write historical background of that project. Then from that historical background, you will get a statement of the problem. So for you to look at peace, and you want to establish it, we must look at where peace lies. Like what you have just asked me, what is peace all about? Peace is the removal of hatred, frustration, anger, and violence. And then it's replaced with love, joy, and happiness. When you're trying to establish peace, you must look at these factors. Then I've just said that in human body, we have the mind and the heart. The mind is a seat of self-control. The heart is a seat of emotion. It's a seat of emotion. And then the heart is weak. That is why whenever you are mentioning of wrong things, you mention the heart, you don't mention the mind. There are two things. Mind is a seat of self-control. The heart is a seat of emotion. So in between, you have a spirit. In between, you have a spirit. Then the spirit human beings have choice of that spirit. I'll come to a place where I will explain where the Holy Spirit works. In between, you have a spirit. And God has given us choice to control that spirit. The spirit of emotion and the spirit of self-control. Now, I want you to understand how peace is being established. It's a concept. It's an intangible concept. You don't see it. We may think now we're peaceful. Here we're peaceful. But I don't know your heart. You don't know my heart. That is where the problem comes from. Here there's peace. We're peaceful. But I don't know what you're thinking. You don't know what I'm thinking. It's only God who knows what I'm thinking, and only God who knows. That is why we must be careful when we are talking of peace. So in between the mind and the heart, the mind is the seat of self-control. The heart is a seat of emotion, passion, all this emotion, things that carry you away is from the heart. It's not from the mind. Most of the time we mention mind, heart, and some people are confused. They don't know the difference. So you have to be very careful. There's a spirit, and you have been given a choice to control that spirit. If you allow your emotions to govern your spirit over control, then you have problem. Then you have problem with peace. Because you are supposed to understand what takes away frustration from you, what takes away anger from you, what takes away hatred from you. And if you misunderstand how that spirit works, how the spirit works, you always have problem. That is human being for you. With this understanding, we have three stakeholders. We have the scholars, we have religious institutions, especially with the church. The scholars, religious institution, then UN, three stakeholders who are trying by effort to establish peace. Because human beings are looking for peace, but who gives them this peace? So scholars have researched and found out that since evil is constructed in the mind, then we must find a way to deconstruct it with peace. To do that, we must instill and establish peace education in people's mind. People don't understand what peace is all about. They just receive it, perceive it, move about. But then, understanding of peace will help you to tell another person what peace is all about. And that is the interaction for you. Because if you don't tell a person that this is peace, and if you don't act it in your attitude, in your behavior, nobody will understand what peace is all about. And there's no how you can enjoy peace with hatred in your mind. It's not possible. Churches should be teaching love and peace. If you see, Jesus was not a preacher. He was a teacher. In John 9:1-3, the disciple called him Rabbi, who is to be blamed? The blind man from birth. You see things that can keep you without peace. Blind man from birth, or his parents. Jesus answered, this is the time to walk and not the time to blame. These things will happen in our lives so that the work of God will manifest in our life. So, men of God are supposed to teach peace.
Yes. Certainly, it is very, very possible because, as I've said, if we develop conversations, because conversations are powerful. Conversations generate the kind of thing that will create the environment for peace. There's nothing too difficult to talk about. It is when you stop talking, you are not listening. You know, this year, in fact, a part of what the UN said, this is a year of what? Listening and learning. When people listen, it's amazing how you can resolve matters. But sometimes they're not even willing to listen. Everybody is just shouting on each other. So there can be peace without war if people's hearts and minds are peaceful. So they generate peaceful ideas, peaceful thoughts. But if they don't listen to each other, if they don't generate peaceful, then there will be all sorts of confrontations. But I don't believe that we have to have war before you have peace. No. Ab initio, you can decide for peace. Because peace really is about ideas that really, as it were, come. When you are assured, if, for example, you have a neighbor, and your neighbor doesn't really give you any cause for worry. In fact, he looks after your interest when you are not. How would you want to fight such a neighbor? But when your neighbor is consistently undermining you, consistently wanting to really, as it were, trip you up, consistently wanting to attack you, my goodness, you're on edge. So there can be peace without war. But unfortunately, because we don't listen to each other, little things can snowball. Before you know it, there's war.
What peace is most likely only some decades from now, if all of us think it is possible.
You can't have peace when you're searching and you're not seeing, and when you're hopeless and there's no hope, and when you're frustrated. You see, anger is a response to frustration. and it leads to violence. Anger is response to frustration. And worries is thinking with fear. Worry is thinking with fear. Anytime you sleep and you are restless, you're afraid of your shadow, you're afraid of your environment, you're afraid of your neighbor, you're afraid that you are thinking with fear. And without that, you don't have peace. You don't have peace. And if you are always angry, you are responding to frustration. And that frustration can come up anytime. It can emanate into violence. It can emanate into hatred. You speak about your neighbor, you speak about yourself, your sisters, your relatives, it's everywhere. But then, when you go through this and you're not seeing peace, you may likely ask yourself, is peace possible? Is peace possible? Peace is very possible. It's very possible. If you know how to attract it, it's possible. It's possible. Scholars have said we should have peace education. I have a blueprint on that. Churches should also teach us that with God, everything is not God of one leg out and one leg in. Believing that there's God. You earn what you believe. Believing that there's God. Some of us have gone through it. Some of us have gone through, devoted our entire life. The solution may not come immediately because God knows his ways are not our ways, his thoughts are not our thoughts. He knows how he keeps his things. He knows how he prepares his things. That is why he says, in all circumstances, give me thanks. Believing, because you are a human being created by him. So you must believe that he's there for you. And trust him. And trust him. When Jesus said, my peace I leave with you, he said, do not let your heart be troubled. If you accept that peace, your heart will not be troubled. But if you don't accept that peace, your heart will always be troubled. My peace I give you. Do not let your heart be troubled. And he supported that by saying the Comforter will come. Do you believe that the Comforter is here? The Comforter is here. All right? Go and meditate. Go spiritually meditate. And listen to his voice. Obey his voice. In everything you are doing, obey his voice. You will feel him. You will feel him. Don't mind that your neighbor doesn't believe in God. Don't mind that the other person is doing a different thing. Just have yourself as an individual. Incorporate him in your life. It will not come. It may not come immediately. It may come immediately. People have seen it and succeeded. So this is where the church comes in. This is where the church comes in. And you have the government, especially the government. You have scholars, UNO, church, on institutions. When we talk of institutions, government is in institutions and NGOs. The government, especially that of Nigeria, is rotten. Simple things they will do, they don't do it. In my own generation, I see myself as coming from the first generation. In my own generation, we enjoyed peace. We didn't ask for it. We didn't ask for peace. We didn't ask for it. You could travel from Owerri to Kaduna in the midnight. Nobody will ask you, where are you going? In this country, in my own generation, you could travel from Owerri to Kaduna in the midnight. Nobody will ask you where. I stayed in Kaduna for over 15 years teaching at Jaji. You can travel from Owerri to Kaduna. Nobody will ask you, where are you going? You live with Muslims. Nobody will even know you are an Hausa man, a Yoruba man, an Igbo man. Nobody. We had peace. We saw, you don't ask for it, you join it. We joined peace. I went to United States from Port Harcourt Airport to New York in 1978 with 400 naira a ticket. And then my BTA was 500 naira, $700. And we were taken care of by this country. We were taken good care of by this country in America. We never looked for money. In unity schools, you see today that have become shambles. Students were given a ticket to go home. They paid their transport. They fed them well. They did everything. This country. You could post through, we use postal office to post our slip for WAEC and all the rest. You could put 2,000 naira in an open envelope and send it. Nobody will touch it. That is the generation I'm coming from. And that is why at times most of us were willing to serve God. Because if you have peace, they won't beg you to serve God. That is why when we look at those things, we're willing to serve God with all our heart. Because we should know where, no matter that we wear suit and all the rest now, we know where he picked us. In my generation, we didn't have bed. It was mud bed. Mud bed. And we trekked to school 2 miles, 3 miles. We fetch water. Yet we were so happy, so happy. There was no TV, no telephone, but we were so happy and peaceful, peaceful. You never see somebody thinking of nonsense. All you're thinking is how to make distinction. Read. I read all my novels in the primary school. Now you cannot concentrate in 2 chapters. You cannot, with this generation, you cannot concentrate in 2 chapters. So what gives you peace? Why is it that at that point we had little comfort and very huge rest of mind, which we don't have now? You cannot deceive me that we have rest of mind here. What is the problem? These are the problems these stakeholders should look after. The UN, even though it's not with them, but especially in Nigeria, these are things we should look for. Why is it that now we have everything, mansion, big cars, but we don't have rest of mind? That is where the problem is now, and that is what we have to solve. There's no peace. We can pretend. It's intangible, you don't see it, but we pretend that there's peace. Because every morning we drive out. If you see now, we are caged into fences. You build a house, you put a fence to have peace. You put security person to have peace. But it's not complete because you'll be afraid of going out with the big car you have, because you may be kidnapped. So where is the peace? So our peace in this generation is not complete. But we must find peace is possible. But then peace is possible in this country if we team up. The youth should have the desire to look for peace in their own country. Because we're almost going. You know, we're afraid of talking about death, but we're almost going. Our generation is almost going. You people should learn to take over. You have not learned to take over, and that is one problem. There should be change in behavior. You people should have peaceful mind, peaceful behavior.
But what should be done first is for people to understand the dignity of human life. That you do not look at a person and classify him based on the color of his own skin or the disposition of his own affiliation to religion or to a social club or a gathering, but that you understand that he has a life that is a life that each one of us carries. And because of that one, we should understand that we can live together even when we disagree. So understanding the sanctity and the importance of human life is one area that we can use to bring about peace. The second thing is to understand that we cannot all come to the point of agreeing on the principles of life together. There is diversity in life. You may like white and I like black. You may like green and I like blue. And that is how life has been programmed by God. There is no such a time when we will all agree together on some of those issues of life. So we should not disagree to the point of bringing down the peace that we're enjoying because of such disagreement in terms of issues of variety and preferences. Then also we can ensure there is peace when we value the communal life we are enjoying right now. We are all Nigerians, we are all human beings, and we are all living in community, and God in his own design has made us social beings. We don't live in isolation. Because if at every point in time we keep taking daggers and guns and things on top of on each other, it will be a problem for us. So for that reason, living in a community is a reason why we should live in peace. Then also, the world as we have it is going to pass away. Why don't we live together until such a time when we will be no more? And then there's going to be a great reunion for us before our Father at the feet of Christ. We should live in peace because without peace, we cannot get to that place. So these are some of the reasons why we must ensure that we live in peace with one another.
International Day of Peace seeks to promote peace among nations and peoples. This year, it has been clearer than ever that we are not each other's enemies. Rather, our common enemy is a tireless virus. COVID-19 has thrown our world into turmoil.
Unfortunately, all of us now, in the entire world, suddenly, a little virus is now fighting the whole of us. So if people are wise, they should just stop all these conflicts and say, hey, how do we keep ourselves alive? A virus is about to devastate the world. And we have to now, Now, three things are paining me about this COVID thing. Three things are paining me. They've politicized the whole process of healing people. So there are accesses to how people can be easily cured from this thing, but because of the politics, unfortunately, this is the year of election in the United States. It has really put a lot of tension into this COVID something. Because some strategy that should have saved the world from something is politicized, and nobody is even talking about them. They are talking about things that are very expensive, very, very dangerous, and yet simple things that can cure. Simply because it was maybe President Trump that told us, no. There is a lot of connivance against the poor and the helpless. Things that they should have been told and it will help them. They are now hiding it because of economic interest. You know, the big pharmaceutical firms, they don't want us to have the cheap method that can cure us. They would rather have us go and buy the more expensive thing. They're not even thinking about this, what do they call it, this, they are developing. The vaccine they are talking about. What vaccine? Vaccines are developed over years. Some of them now want to develop vaccine over 6 months, a few months. It's dangerous. And it's not a very simple one, because if they change the DNA, our body is already established by God to be able to fight disease. If you now change and modify that DNA of the body by using a different vaccine, you've changed us. And we can't even protect ourselves anymore. It's a very, very serious matter. And so even this COVID that we're fighting, I hope that Nigerian leaders will not just take whatever is coming from the world. We should look at the interests of Nigeria and let there be peace, even under COVID.